Hi, you guys. This is so wild and crazy, and I'm like actually nervous. That's like so new for me because I'm just like been doing this for so long in like some form, but like every time I feel like you do like a new thing, it's like the little butterflies come up. But I'm really excited to be bringing you guys like the first official like video formatted episode of my podcast of called I Really Love Myself, and I'm really excited to be bringing the podcast back. And I'm going to start having guests, and we have our first guest today. Um, and for now with my guests, I'm like really particularly, and not every episode will have a guest, but I'm really like specifically inviting certain people that I want to have like certain conversations with that I think are just going to be like really valuable and important and powerful. And like I just had to have my friend and like at times like coach Amy on the podcast because I just adore you. I adore your work. I adore your energy. And you have like I actually worked with Amy a bit like through my last breakup in coaching. And she's just amazing. So I'm just really excited to have this conversation with her with you guys. So Amy, if you want to go ahead and like introduce yourself.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I feel so honored. And also, this just feels like, I just feel like I'm getting to hang out with you for an hour, or however long,
Yeah.
which is so fun because I adore you and I love the way that our work overlaps and intersects in so
hmm
many ways. So I know we're going to get into
hmm
some really good, juicy stuff today. For anyone who doesn't know me, hi, I'm Amy. I work with women in the realms of feminine awakening. At the time that I met Gianna, like years ago now, I was doing more dating and relationship focused work. I underwent this massive, feminine awakening myself in 2019, and it really changed the trajectory of my life,
Yeah.
um, changed the trajectory, of my business and the service that I provide to women. My work is really all about helping individuals recover this innate sense of wholeness and sovereignty inside
Mhm.
themselves so they can know and really feel that they are worthy no matter what, and that they are totally free and have agency to design life on their terms, whatever they want that to look like. So yeah, that's a little tidbit of what I do.
I love it so much. And like something that I will share, and I don't know if you realize this or not, because I don't know how much of this I have shared, but so Amy and I met through like a peer mastermind that a mutual friend started. And it's, I'm just like gonna be so honest. I remember like earlier on in my business, I had this like slight chip on my shoulder with like other relationship coaches
Sure.
because I just had like such a bad experience with like other women relationship coaches where um just like a handful at first where I just had this like little guard up as a result. Um and uh there was just I don't know, like I feel like I kind of was on the receiving end of just like some catty, like kind of wounded feminine girl energy from a few relationship coaches, just certain things that they did and like said to people about me. And like we had mutual clients, they'd be like, oh yeah, this person said this and that about you. And I'm like, what are you even doing? Like that is so unprofessional. It's wild. Um and so like it was so funny, like going into this pure mastermind. I believe like you and I were, and I could be wrong, but like we're the only women in the group that were like primarily focusing on relationship work in our work. And so I remember kind of being like drawn to you and like appreciating you, but also like a little guarded.
Totally. I didn't know that at all. That's so sweet.
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
so funny. It's kind of like one of those like, because for me, I got to a place like a long time ago where like I'm not trying to like compete or like put down other women, but I still can be on the receiving end of that at times, as a lot of people will. And so like I might kind of be like, meh, like I'm a little guarded, but like I don't like hold that against women. I don't take it personally. And I also like don't treat other women that way. And I
Mhm.
actually have, like just like sisterhood energy vibes. Like I just want to be like I'm a big like mush ball. Like I just want to like love women and people. And so
Mhm.
that, whatever. But but I remember like in the peer mastermind there was like a few conversations where I was like, oh, like Amy's like good vibes, like she's good vibes. She's like a true, genuine person.
Mhm.
Um, and then we had like you like had actually showed like appreciation and like respect for my work and even like shouted me out on Instagram. And I was like, and then like my wall was just completely down, and I was like, I love this bitch.
Well, you know what's so interesting looking back at that time, and I think this is something that has aided us like staying in connection over the years, is
Hmm.
like our work is quite similar in the sense
Hmm.
that, and even when I was doing, more strictly dating and relationship focused stuff, it's like it's relationship focused, but it's so much relationship to self
Yeah.
focused, and like really cleaning up codependent patterns. And really, I mean, think about the title of your podcast is I really love myself, like being on a self love journey and understanding that the relationship we have with ourselves is going to determine all these other aspects of our relationships with others. And that was a place where I always really appreciated and continue to appreciate what you're providing, because it's so much more holistic and really like grounded than just, okay, like let's get you married in 90 days or something. You know what I mean? Like these kinds
Yeah.
of things, like it's more I just feel like there's a lot of overlap in terms of what we've done in the ways we've done it, unique to us.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I agree. Um, and like that was why I like had worked with you towards the end, like when I was going through my last breakup, because I was like, I just felt like I was like, Amy gets it, and like this is just like it's like almost like what I would tell myself, but like it's another person, and like I kind of want that space held and like that reflection. Um, and just a lot of, and also like you obviously just brought a lot of value. Like I still think about to this day how you referenced to me, gosh, who's the woman that wrote that? What is that book? But I remember you referenced her a lot, like in how she was like married to this man for a long time. What is the book? Untamed?
No, I do know. I know that book, but I don't remember mentioning that, but maybe I did. I have no idea.
Okay. Okay. So this is just like coming off the freaking dome here, but I don't her name is escaping me at the moment, but there's this like well-known author, um, and she was like married for a
Oh,
long.
Glennon Doyle.
Glennon, thank
Yes.
you
Oh,
so
wait, no,
much.
she did write Untamed. You're totally right. I was thinking
Yeah.
of
Okay.
Unbound, which is this whole other end of the spectrum. But yes, you're totally
Yeah.
right. And I brain
Yeah.
farted. Okay, yes, Glennon Doyle.
Yeah. No, and just like you sharing that example with me when you like for a little bit of background if you're not familiar, and I'm not like an expert here so I don't super closely follow her even though I like her work, but I remember you sharing with me that she was like married for a long time to a man, and then she like met this woman, and she ended up like being with that woman. And I remember like when I was just really like uncoupling from my last relationship, and I had met Dustin, like me and Dustin like had a connection, and it was just, and I was like processing all of these like shoulds in my mind, and like, and one thing that I will never forget, that you said to me, that like Dustin and I still reference from time to time, because like the way you specifically said it, and I just love it so much, but you were like, whatever like happens like with this connection with Dustin, like, maybe Dustin just like left a Dustin sized hole, like ripped a hole that needed to be ripped, and it's just like a Dustin sized hole. Like it's a
Mhm.
Dustin hole. Or so you said something like that. And I just remember that like just like stayed with me so like profoundly, and like just stuck in my brain. And I told Dustin about it. And because something that him and I both say to each other is like meeting each other, like in meeting him changed my life, and like he tells me the same thing all the time, like meeting me changed his life, like we just like completely shifted each other's paradigms in these ways that were just like really important relationship wise, um and yeah, and that was just like so beautiful that you like just
Mm.
you that gift that you gave me. I was like, thank you,
Aw.
Amy. I needed that.
I'm so glad to know that that really met you at the right time. I mean, this is the thing about, I mean, not just the thing about relationships, but it's like, there's the way we think things are going to go. There's the way that we want things to go. And then there's the way it's actually going to go. Like I really, so much of my path, both like relationally and also just in my life, has continuously brought me back to this place of surrender and getting out of my own way and accepting that if the universe wants to move me, they will move me by any means necessary. Like,
Hmm.
I just got chills all on the left side of my body. But like,
I did too.
like if I'm meant to be on a different path, living a different life, experiencing something else, um, it, it doesn't matter kind of what I want on like the egoic level or what is comfortable for me or what's preferable to me. I'm going to be shown sometimes brutally so like, hey, this isn't it. This actually isn't it. And that can be so unbelievably, I know firsthand, I know, like how devastating and what a profound grief walk that can be to have to actually surrender to the reality of where we're being asked to go, even if it doesn't always make sense, or even if it's
Mhm.
not. Like there's a part of us that wants it, and there's this other part of us that's like, oh, wrestling so hard with it. And I remember, um, yeah, just like having conversations at that time with you and really witnessing in your sharing of it that it was like, none of it was easy. None of it was easy. And you were really willing to accept and recognize that it's like this new connection that's forming is undeniable. And that's a word that I use a lot with my clients around like, when people meet somebody and they're kind of like they're going back and forth, or they're really confused, or they're really unsure. I'm like, look, when it is meant to be, quote unquote, there's an undeniable quality of it that you cannot turn away from and ignore. And
Mhm.
nobody knows when that's going to happen or what the exact ingredients are that create that impact. But when it's there, it's there. And
Mhm.
like the jig is up. It's like, okay, yeah, it's you. Like, all right, let me reorganize my life.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So well said. And like you're just so I love how in touch you are with like the pulse of like the truth in the universe, like the feminine wisdom, because it's like I literally have used those exact words verbatim with Dustin, and he's done the same for me. It's like it was just like undeniable, right? Like and I think so often, and this was something that you also really helped me with too, like to just like validate for me because I was like following my truth, I was
Mm,
following my alignment, and I just was like doing it unapologetically, even though it really challenged like what I thought was okay or allowed or should, or like what's appropriate, or what's like, because I think in my mind, I thought that like when my last relationship ended, that it would just be like, okay, my last relationship ended, boop, 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 like chapter closed. Now we're gonna be single for this amount of time to like prove to other people that like I can be alone, and like, even though I know I can, and
mhm,
like, and that's the way you should do it. And there's probably some like profound thing that I need to like be aware of or realize. And it's like, nah, bitch, you're good, and like, and I felt that and I knew that. And you just like really like validated that for me. And what I will say is that, like, to add to what you're saying, it's like, I really feel sometimes it's like we have these like really big, deep desires. And sometimes it's like the universe, or whatever you want to call it, is responding to that energy that is kind of within your being, and it's like
mhm,
manifesting onto itself, like what you
mhm,
seek is seeking you, kind of a thing. And so,
mhm,
it's kind of like if you don't quit the job, then your ass gets fired, or like, sometimes there's a paradigm that you're existing in your life, and an external factor comes in and like shatters, what isn't meant to be there anymore, and it like really just feels like there's this deep undeniable like recognition of like, oh, this is correct, this is
mhm,
right.
mhm,
um and this is what has been like trying to come out. Um and that connect, like my relationship with Dustin was very much that, like on both ends. And I so love the nuance. and that was just something that you like just deeply helped me like just radically accept was nuance.
Mhm.
Um yeah. So with that said, one thing that I was like really wanting to just explore with you today and like talk about is, I know that your work has shifted a bit into more of like a feminine wisdom focus overall, which obsessed. But obviously there's still like a layer where you go into relationships with people, and in the past you were primarily focused on just supporting people around dating and relationships. And I kind of want to like girly relationship person to girly relationship person like talk about like, some of the interesting elements of doing that line of work, and then like your personal life, like your dating
Mhm.
life, your relationships, and like how you can honor both, and like maybe some of the pressures or expectations or like boundaries or lines that you kind of have to have in order to do both. Because it's really fascinating stuff, right? Especially if like, I know that this is something I've had to explore a lot over the years too, where it's like, hey, like in my last, like I started, for example, like I started primarily focusing on relationship coaching when I got to this place in my life where like I feel like I figured out like how to really choose like healthy aligned partnership. Like I was like raised in like trauma bond, like codependency, like, and that's just what I gravitated towards. And it was when I finally like broke out of that and could actually have like healthy, sustainable like love, um, that I felt just very passionate about like teaching on that, and I started doing that in my last relationship. But then it's like when you go through a breakup or like if you're starting to date, how that can just be so, it can get a little weird or like confusing for your audience even. And like even like maybe confusing for yourself, or like you maybe realize like, oh, I want to share more or I don't want to share as much. I'm just really curious of like your own like take, which I kind of know, but like also your experience and what you've how you've evolved in that, if that makes
Oh
sense. I
my
know that's like a big
God.
question.
No, I think this is such like a interesting topic because
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people maybe address this super directly, but it is a very weird experience to be, yeah, guiding people in a particular direction, like on a path, and you're walking the same path and you're learning and growing and evolving in your own way. Like it's a really it's a funky weird thing. And to be also, to your point of like, and to the like the personal branding aspect of it, that like I show up on social media and I share about my life, and when I go through a breakup I have to make an announcement and say, hey, you're not going to see this person in my stories anymore, or like, and getting clear with myself over the years. I've been coaching for a decade now, which feels insane, but like, I've lived all over the spectrum in terms. There was a time early on where I was like, oh, I'm going to share a lot. And then there were times and seasons where I was like, I'm not going to share anything. And times where it's like when I was really actively doing a lot of YouTube content where I was like, if you go on a date with me, like just, I mean, this wasn't an official disclaimer, although it should have been. I was like, you might be in a video next week. Do you know what I mean? And it was like, and it became this thing in my life where I had a man say this to me recently where he was like, I reconnected with a man from my past, and he was like, we lost touch for a long time and then we reconnected. And he was like, I was always kind of nervous. I was going to like see a video or see you. And like, it was going to be some story about you and, about him. And, it's so, it is one of those things where it's like, I really believe like most things, everybody has to kind of figure out for themselves, like what
Hmm.
works and doesn't work, and where are the lines and where are the boundaries and what's comfortable and what's in service to my work in the world. um yeah, I mean, I feel like I could literally like plop in on so many. I'm curious if there's like one area, if you could help me like anchor in a particular
Yeah.
aspect of it, or yeah.
No. Okay. Okay. Ugh, same. Like I feel like there's so many things I could add to this and just plug you down into. But Have you ever gotten, because I remember, and I didn't follow you, like we weren't connected in your earlier YouTube days, but I remember just from things that you've referenced. And I think when you referenced it at times, like I went and like creeped on some of your old videos at one point, and I was
Mhm.
like, damn, like early, like Amy YouTube, like you are spicy. Like you are spicy,
It
which
was a
I
little
love.
it was fun but brutal. Like fun.
Yeah.
I look back and I'm like, damn, I had lady balls. Like I really do. I'm like, I was
Yeah.
taking no prisoners. Yeah.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
I like I have such a respect and admiration for, and I can also see like, the like the pivot and like maybe why you would want to, because you know, because I remember at one point you had shared that you had like a man like hate group basically like come after you for
Yes.
your content.
Yes.
Yeah.
That
Do
was
you mind
weird.
sharing a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean it like well, and this is interesting, right? Because I figured out pretty early on when I was like creating content for YouTube, and this wasn't something that I was consciously trying to do, but I realized that in calling out a lot of the unfavorable to like despicable behavior of men and just being really
Hmm.
honest and blunt about it and very
Yeah.
forthcoming about it, it really, really resonated with a lot of women in my audience. And it really resonated with the experience that I had had of feeling, okay, like I got played or I feel used or God, what's up with this douchebaggy guy who's like hot and cold with me? Like the ways that I had learned to manage those types of personalities and then steer myself and guide myself towards more unavailable, good-hearted people. Um, Talking about that full spectrum experience, quite again, like brutally and honestly, really spoke to so many women because it was like reflecting back, like, oh yeah, I've dated a guy like that, and
Hmm.
but what ended up happening was it's like I kind of mistakenly ended up creating this like common enemy of these unavailable men or fuck boys or your ex who did you dirty or that cheating scumbag. Like I was at a time in my life where I was going through seasons of feeling really frustrated even in my own dating life, and
Hmm.
like I remember there was a point where I had like so many women in my one-on-one practice who were like meeting their soulmates and like getting married, or I would get an email where someone was like, "Oh my God, you'll never believe it, but like we're pregnant and I wanted to let you know because, it wouldn't have been possible without your help." It's like all of these things. And I was like, "What's the frickin' frackin' deal?" Like I was like,
Yeah.
why can I, support and help another woman in this, but I'm over here on the struggle bus. Like it really frustrated me. And I really
Yeah.
felt like there was a part of me that felt like an imposter. There was a part of me that felt like a fraud. There was a part of me that felt like something's wrong with me because I can't seem to like crack this code for myself. And I think a lot of that frustration did end up kind of spilling out into various forms of content where I was like, well, fuck these dudes then. Like, and
Yeah.
screw this. And and that really resonated with people. Who it did not resonate with is a lot of the men who would come across my videos or, um, yeah, like, guys who would listen to me rant and rave about a shitty date that I went on, and some part of them feels called out or seen or feeling like, "Oh, I'm gonna defend that guy," or "This is who the hell do you think you are?" I mean, YouTube comments are like the toilet bowl of the internet, so it's
Amen.
like it's brutal. But, I mean, that experience it's funny, I was actually thinking about that the other day. I just remember, like, waking up, it was a Saturday morning, I was waking up, I was getting ready to teach my old online dating workshop, Swipe Like a Boss, and I opened my DMs, and there were all these DMs from all of these men who were like, "We're gonna destroy you, like, we're gonna
Wow.
ruin your life," like, I mean, like, really, like, disturbing, creepy, like, offensive. This was even, like, kind of pre-cancel culture, but, like, just like, "Oh, okay, there's some Reddit, some forum somewhere where
Right.
a group of men have come across my YouTube channel and have decided I am, some like bitch that needs to be put in her place."
Right.
And it's like it was scary. I remember calling my boyfriend at the time and being like, "I don't know what to do about this." Like I don't know,
Yeah.
like I don't know. And he was like, "Well, look, like just write it out. Like, this is not, these people can't actually get to you. Like, and this also is like the cost of doing business, like things like this are going to
Mhm.
come up and going to happen. The thing I never saw coming was, maybe like a year later, and this was really like early stages of my feminine awakening journey, really seeing with more clarity how much I was sending out this signal that of like man hatred. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And really
Yeah.
rallying up a lot of women to tap into this like inner fire of like, yeah, fuck these guys and
Yeah.
screw this man from my past, and my ex-husband is an asshole. And um I was walking around with a lot of unchecked, unconscious bias that had me yeah, demonizing men. And
Yeah.
it's like I look back at that time in my life and I look at different experiences I was having with men at that time, and I'm like, well, no fucking wonder.
Yeah.
No wonder,
Mhm.
because like there was a part of me that was walking around with a lot of mistrust and wounding and baggage, and unconsciously projecting it on to the
Yeah.
men that I was encountering and dating and trying to form relationships with, and that's never going to work.
Right.
But like that realization was so humbling for me because number one, it like showed me like, oh, of course, like I still have work to do. I'll never not have work to do. Like I'm
Mhm.
this healing evolution journey, like this train doesn't stop, like I might get little breaks in different stations, but like this is going to be an ongoing process. I'm going to be continuously shown where my work is.
Mhm.
Um and also it like really gave me this opportunity to steer things in a different direction and to acknowledge this more fully. And I did a whole like workshop, and it's really informed how I work with women, like helping women really clean up this man hatred stuff, which is such a like feminine collective wound that
Yeah.
uniquely right now there's a lot of permission to really hang out there. There's a lot
Yeah.
of you can bond with women all day on like who's done you dirty and broken your heart and what the fuck is this guy's problem.
Yeah.
um and it's been a whole thing for me to really clean that up in myself and heal it and not make myself available to participate in any of that, because it's not going to get us any closer to what we want. And if you are a woman who is seeking, devoted, lasting, loving partnership with a man, no self-respecting man ought to tolerate that from you. It doesn't, like,
True.
just period. Like no man who is with his like self-esteem and self-worth intact should put up with that behavior from my
Mm.
perspective, because I would
Yeah.
never be okay with that from a partner. Like if I found out that I had a partner that was secretly bashing women, I would be like, what the hell's this? Like that's weird.
L.
Yeah. I'd be like, no, that doesn't turn me on. No, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. Like, it's so true because it's like I think so many women can relate to that. I know I can, especially like when you've had, like I feel like man hatred is a response to like trauma and victimization, like that
Hmm.
women do encounter and experience, and it's valid. But it also, I think it's a way for women to start to try to get their power back, like
Hmm.
when they feel so like just powerless,
Hmm.
right? In heartbreak, in abuse, in trauma, right? But when you kind of just like have this black and white focus like that, you might get your power back. But it's a very fine line because then you start holding this lens in the way that you view men as like, this evil, bad, like men suck kind of thing,
Hmm.
and that does leak out into your dating life and into
Hmm.
your romantic relationship because everybody is a bit flawed, like it's just the reality. And so like I know I really really had to clean that up myself at one point, and even on and off at times like where it's like popped back up. But it's like um because I feel like in my experience, when this is really relevant, you can kind of convince yourself that like, oh, I finally found like a good man, right? And like I don't have to hate this man, but like I hate other men. And then it's
Totally.
like, and then it's like as soon as your man makes a little bit of a mistake, like that voice that's like, we hate him, like just like comes up and it leaks out into the relationship in the way that you look at your partner, the way that you look at your man, the way that you like maybe say something with a certain tone of hatred, or like the way
Mhm.
that you like whatever. And like I agree with you 100%. Like a self-respecting like masculine man, right, that respects himself, like he is not going to be treated that way, he's not going to be talked to that way. It's emasculating, it's disrespectful as hell. And like it turns like a dynamic of partnership into like a me versus you, which is pretty common, I would say, in a lot of relationships, unfortunately. But it's also like it erodes like the safety and the intimacy and the um you know and just like the healthy like chemistry, and it's just not good, like I know like in my relationship, for example, like that's something that is very much like not there. um and like and I'm really thankful for that. And this kind of reminds me of like kind of brat energy. So when we think about like um when I feel like people talk about like feminine testing, like to me, like masculine and feminine polarity, um, and obviously like like masculine and feminine energy, like doesn't matter like your sex or gender, like we all have it. But in traditional like hetero relationships where like maybe the man like is more masculine, the woman is more feminine in the dynamic, I do find that like in my experience, like that kind of relationship dynamic has a lot of overlap with like the BDSM kink world. And like something that I've personally just made a connection with is like um how some people view like feminine testing, where like a woman will kind of in this like sneaky way like test a man, and it comes from like the deep biological drive of like, are you a safe provider that I can like lean on, that I can trust, that like has my back, so that way like I can have kids with you and know that like we're going to be good, right? And like sometimes how that can come out like when it's unconscious is this kind of like bitchy, kind of like man hatey energy that's like, you suck, put me in my place, like whatever. And to me, that's also like the brat, like when it comes to like kink, right? When you think of like the brat that's like rebellion and rebellious, and like some people are okay with that and like that to an extent, but like for me personally, it feels like a bit of a game that's like lacking vulnerability. Um, and that's something that and we're humans, we might make mistakes at times or whatever, but it's like at the end of the day, like the most pristine relationship to masculine men, I feel like you have to drop that, like you have to drop like the man hatred, like the pushy testing, like you suck kind of like negative projection. And this also doesn't mean that you just like view every man as like the most amazing man in the world. Like you have discernment, but you don't have like this like cold, jaded feeling. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and like I remember when I was really beginning to unwind this for myself, I was working with a coach who was asking me, like she had me do some kind of like stream of consciousness, like writing about just like my beliefs about men, right?
Mhm.
And it was like so illuminating because I remember her just being like, okay, like fill in the blank, like men are. And I was like, like stupid, ignorant, like arrogant, idiots, like just the
Yeah.
like just all of these horrible things. And I was like, "Oh my God, that's what I'm walking around. Like, that's what I'm
Yeah.
walking around with. That's like the lens, the filter that I am viewing just men in the world through."
Hmm.
Um, and then she was asking me about women, and she was like, "Well, what about women? Like, how do you view women?" And I was like, "Well, like there's incredible women and then there's like not so great women. Like there's like, women that I really respect and admire and vibe with, and then there's women that I'm really like, "Oh, like I'm not down with what you're doing, but also like you're a free person. You can do what you want." And she was like, "Isn't that interesting that you can have more kind of complexity and space for like women to be good, bad, awesome, awful, whatever. And yet with men, it's like, no, you're all just going to get lumped into this one category. And I
Mm-hmm.
had to really train my brain to shift that perspective that I was able to have with women in the world onto men, where, to your point,
Right.
it's like, no, like there's all different kinds of men. And there are men who are kind and good and benevolent and caring and strong and powerful in these like really healthy, yummy ways. And yeah, and then there are men who are ignorant or arrogant or whatever. And like, why would I want to give those men the majority of my attention and focus? Like it's a
Right.
very and this is where the feminine power piece, I just want to like underline this for anyone who's listening to this who's feeling maybe a little like seen or like, "Oop, yep, yeah, okay, like I see myself in this." When you understand how powerful you are, you're not gonna waste your attention and energy on what you don't want.
Mm-hmm.
If you know how powerful you are and how powerful your energy is, and what a powerful creational being you are, and how inherently magnetic you are, you're not going to muddy that beautiful water with all of these negative projections and focusing on what you don't want.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yep.
I promise I lived it. This is like a cautionary tale. You gonna call in a bunch of shit that you don't want. And then you're
Yeah.
gonna feel and the thing that's shitty about it, right, is then we feel justified. Like it's like, see, they are all terrible. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because you picked that one who
Yeah.
sucks. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Totally. Like the element of like self, and it's hard, like especially when you come from a history of like big trauma,
Mm-hmm.
um like I know for me, like I had to like I feel like universally divinely so I was kind of like wounded in the most specific ways by men like very early on in life, like through like my father figures. And I experienced like incredible like abandonment and also like abuse of all kinds. And of like this is like my part of my freaking origin story, where like in my childhood, like I came out of childhood into adulthood just feeling like such a victim, and I was, like legitimately so. But like there comes a point in time where it's like, even though you were a victim to certain men or certain circumstances or certain systems, like that can be true. And then it's like, at what point are you just screwing yourself over by like continuing to just like hold on to those narratives and those stories, and like, when there's actually like, you can create a new life for yourself, you can create new experiences with men for yourself, and you deserve that.
Mm-hmm.
And like one little shift that I really had to that was like a mantra for me at one point was, because like my stepdad growing up was just like, he was just like the domineering, like physically abusive, like get in your face, like gaslighter kind of dude. And like, I like on a just like trauma body somatic level, like when I would be in the presence of like a strong masculine man, like I would just get into this like emasculating like trauma response of like cut him down, cut him down, cut him down, not safe, not safe. And like it was so unconscious in my younger years. And I had to really like uh learn the hard way through kind of dating men that weren't in their power and realizing how taxing that was for me as a feminine woman. Um and then make this switch of like, hey, I actually do want that, but I want like a healthy version of it. And I had to like retrain, like a mantra that I had to myself was, masculine men use their power to support and protect me. They don't like, instead of control and abuse me, because I associated like masculine power with abuse and control and like domination and like using that to just shatter like me as a feminine being. And and it was understandable, right, to have that feeling. But again, like at what point, it's like, are you holding on to something that somebody else did, and they might not even be thinking about it anymore, right, and they're living their life? Well, it's like, you fucking deserve to live your life, you deserve a good life, and
Mm.
like, you deserve good men, you deserve to, be at peace despite and like not just be at peace, but like have a good, like have fun, like be horny, like, be like turned on in your life and like in your relationships, even if like your past was that. And like there comes a point in time where it's like you have to take responsibility for that. Like you are
Mhm.
in control of that. And it's like, it's not, um, yeah, like you kind of just have to call yourself out, even when shit was rough, you
Ugh,
know?
it's like it's the hardest pill to swallow in my
Mhm.
experience. Like it sucks. I remember like that coach that I was telling you about who's like having me do this like association.
Yeah.
She almost fired me because because she was
Oh
like
my god, Amy.
because she was really like you're really stubborn in this. Like she's like, "Do you actually want to shift this? Like do you really?" Because I was very justified. Because this is the other thing about this that was interesting, which I don't think I realized until later, but it's like, I was going through my own trials and tribulations and
Mhm.
stuff, but I was also at that time working with so many women who on a weekly basis are sharing these really painful stories with me. And it
Yeah.
was, I think unconsciously, it was feeding a lot of my own narrative, like I
Yeah.
wasn't getting to sort of balance that out enough with the examples that you're describing here of like, no, like who are the protectors, who are the providers, who are these like, good-hearted masculine beings who have no desire to hurt or control or dominate. Like I wasn't um like they say like the grass is greener where you water it. Like that grass wasn't getting watered enough.
Yeah.
And I don't say any of this from the lens of like, and this is easy. This was probably the
Mhm.
hardest. This shift that we're talking about was probably the hardest internal transformation work I've ever done, where there was so much I
Mhm.
had to let myself let go of, even though there were these parts of me, like you're saying, that truly had been victimized, that had been hurt, that was holding on to all of it in an attempt to create like a shield. And I
Yeah.
think that's the thing that a lot of the time, this is what we don't realize is it's like, we think, oh, if I hold on to this old pain, it'll protect me. If I
Mhm.
hold on to this identity of like where I have been hurt or victimized or abused or traumatized, that will be this shield that will protect me.
Yeah.
It actually creates the exact opposite effect because
Yeah.
we're living in this space like you're describing of constant threat. We're always looking like I look at my relationships at that time and I had partners who would reflect this to me where it was like I was waiting for somebody to fuck up. Like I was
Yeah.
waiting for somebody to disappoint me. And inevitably, because nobody's perfect, there would be these cracks in a foundation, or I would see like, oh, look at you, you do have a flaw. And instead of being able to see that for what it was, which is like, yeah, you're an imperfect being, that part of me that was afraid or hurt or traumatized and genuinely victimized, it was like I would have this inflammatory reactive response because I was scared.
Mhm.
And um and getting to a point where I was like, okay, I have to just explore or experiment with like letting this go and putting
Yeah.
this down and exploring this other way of viewing men and being in relationship to men and actively really work on that. um I mean, it took time, and
Yeah.
yeah, it took my coach at the time being like, you need to decide if you really want this, because like I'm not gonna fight with you about this. Like
Yeah.
you need to come to that conclusion within yourself that like you really want to shift this. um
Yeah.
but I think I would imagine from what you're sharing, and I know also from the work that I've done with my clients over the years, it's like, we start to let some of that go and we realize, oh, I'm not actually losing anything in letting that go. And I'm
Mhm.
not actually less safe in letting that go. I'm getting to sit in like in a deeper sense of like, trust in who I am and my sight and my discernment, and not being so heavily influenced by like the ghosts of the past,
Yeah.
because we can recreate that stuff forever without even meaning to.
Mhm.
Because that's just the nature of how it goes. And
Right.
I love that you keep kind of repeating this, like, this truth of like, yeah, you deserve to have like a beautiful life. You deserve to feel free. You deserve to have the relationship of your dreams. You deserve to be loved unconditionally and to experience everything that you want. So if there's some way, for each of us, if there's something I'm doing consciously or unconsciously that's getting in the way of that, don't I owe it to myself to heal that, whatever it is?
Right. Yep. So well said. There's like so many things that you said that I'm just like, amen, preach, like so good. I just love the way that you put everything that you just said. Um, yeah, it's oh gosh, it's just so true. Like how we can just unconsciously get in our own way in that way. And like if anything, sometimes like what we've encountered in the past, like does it makes us more safe, not less safe, because it's like we have wisdom and awareness, but it's a fine line between like being in a hyper vigilant state where it's like you're just negatively projecting and like, getting in your own way versus like taking that, integrating, taking your power back, like acknowledging your power in any situation and like setting your sights on being open to the good and like what you want and what you deserve.
Hmm.
Um so I really want to like bring it back a little bit more to honestly there's a million things I would love to get into today, but we're probably gonna have to do another situation down the road, which I would love.
Totally.
But so what have you I want to kind of circle back a little bit to the conversation of like when men would be hesitant to like they're like, oh, I was a little afraid I'd end up like on your YouTube
Hmm.
channel because
Hmm.
I relate to that in a different but similar way where like I first started coaching and I was doing YouTube as a teenager and I had this whole series and I think it's private now so I don't think anybody can find it, but it's called like the personal patterns like series. And like me and my twin sister, we were just like so into shadow work at the time, which I needed to be. Like it saved my life. But at that point, like I was just sharing so much about like my childhood trauma as a teenager. And like I would just share like about like active abuse that I was like experiencing like in my home. And then like my mom would just get like super pissed at me or like like my ex stepdad growing up, who I don't have a relationship with, zero contact with, like I have him blocked because like one time when I was like younger, early 20s, like he just like came after me online for something that I
Hmm.
shared about him. And so I had to like learn my boundaries with that stuff too. And like not just like what is fair to me, but also like like the nuance of certain relationships and like what is maybe like honoring to those relationships to share or not share. Um, and like what is honoring for me to share and not share in like a nuanced way. Um, and so I can really relate to that a lot, like in that regard. But I'm really curious about like how, like what has been challenging for you specifically, or what was challenging when it came to dating and like the boundaries that you had to have with your business and like your brand in order to like not interfere with your personal life.
Yeah. I mean, I look back now and it was really interesting because on the one hand, there would be this weird experience of connecting with men or meeting someone on a dating app. And, we do the thing of like, we look each other up on Facebook or we look each other up on Instagram. Like you don't know the person, but you're like, okay, like James R. and he went to this college. Like, let me see what I can find out. And I remember
Yeah.
having this weird experience of like, oh, someone could find my YouTube channel and just hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of footage of me. But the weird thing about it was like of me, like I hope, and I received this feedback that like, what I'm putting out there on the internet is very authentic to me and it's not a performance and it's very like
Mhm.
who I am, just kind of like turned up the dial a few notches. Um, and it's also not me. Do you know what I mean? Like that was, I think often the hard thing was, okay, like you can see all of this and also like you can if I would receive feedback where it was like, this is really like what you've built is really impressive or like holy shit what you're doing is really incredible or I really admire this. I would have it, it would really run the gamut in terms of like I could see ways that sometimes it created this experience where someone kind of put me on a pedestal and it was like, oh wow, like I better not fuck this up, or I better make sure that I'm showing up
Ooh.
exactly right, or I better, like I don't want to be one of these douchey dudes you're talking about. Like that was an experience. And then it would also bring out, different insecurities in people, yeah, like sometimes, someone would be uncomfortable with something that I shared, not even about them, but just having to me, like, me talking about like blowing a dude sometime or something. And it's like,
Mhm.
I had to really move through this acceptance, and I still have to move through this. You know what I mean? Like I still, every time my work evolves, I'm like, oh boy, like now you're now you're publicly talking about this on the internet, and now you're
Mhm.
projecting this image, and who's going to see it, and who from your past is going to see it, and who from your family is going to see it, and who, yeah, like your future dating pool is going to see it. There is this point where I was like, the man who's going to be a yes for this, like it's just going to be a non-issue.
Yeah.
And it's not gonna throw him, and it's not gonna freak him out, and it's not gonna have him feeling all weird, and he's not gonna wanna like ask me to be smaller or less, like I had to really let myself trust that, like, for the right man, this is gonna be something that they're gonna love and appreciate, that I get to be this fully expressed and uncensored, and that's just how I am, and that's how I've always been. Um, or he's probably not the person for me. And,
Mhm.
the more I was able, and this is true for anything that we have some insecurity around. It's like the more that we hold that thing with this sense of acceptance and approval, and like this is just how I am. And you can truly take it or leave it. Like there is, and not saying that with any judgment or disdain, but this really clean sense of like, this is me, and I really like me, and I really love myself. And if this is not for you, like that's truly not a problem at all. Like I
Yeah.
completely respect your right to reject me, and it doesn't mean anything about me. It just means I'm not for you, and that's okay. And the
Right.
more I have become increasingly comfortable with the fact that this is part of my package, um I stopped resisting it. It's like it just has not been an issue. Um,
Yeah.
and I'll add with that, like to the boundaries piece, I remember when my work was really transitioning and shifting, and of course, like relationships are always going to be a part of the work that I do with women, because the one, like the feminine is
Yeah.
relational, like the feminine is deeply rooted in connection. Um, and also, like, relationships are such a massive part of our lives, and, like, relationships, I really believe, are some of our greatest teachers and healers, so there's always gonna be
Mhm.
plenty to work through. Um, but there was a part of me that was like, it's kind of a relief, like, to actually be taking the spotlight off of the relationship focus,
Mhm.
in the sense that I got to completely, like, relieve myself of any, like, pressure to like present as this perfectly realized woman,
Yeah.
in the perfect relationship, and oh my gosh, we're always happy together, and oh my gosh, we only have the most incredible sex, and oh my gosh,
Yeah.
like my work has never really been about, like I said, at the top, like, let's get you hitched as quickly as possible. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
I really view our fulfillment in relationships as so much a byproduct of so many other factors in our
Yeah.
lives. And like, but there was this part of me that was like, I'm I'm glad that as things are shifting and I'm kind of expanding the umbrella of work that I'm doing with women, it feels like there's some pressure being taken off
Yeah.
of um of having to be at a certain place in my life. And at
Mhm.
that time, like I was in a relationship with my ex-partner, like we had a beautiful relationship together for almost 4 years, like incredible man, incredible experience, like 10 out of 10, like gold stars, and but I remember even when I announced that, like I got some messages, that I was like, hey, I'm in a new relationship. I don't know how much I'm going to share about it. I got some messages from people being like, oh my gosh, now I feel like I can really take you seriously.
Ugh,
Now I feel like you actually have not like a credential, but like it was like, because if you're single, what do you know about relationships? And I'm like, if that's the metric that
eat
we're
one.
but it was just, and it sometimes I would have interesting conversations with those people because I was like, this is really showing me where you have this idea that people who are in relationships or people who are married or that they have some status or authority that single
Yeah,
people don't have. And I just want you to know that that's a really skewed perspective. Like,
yeah,
just like we can't just cast a wide net like that. Um
right.
but yeah, like, when you get messages like that, it's like, oh my God, great. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So so you've been like viewing me, but kind of like thinking, oh, well, she probably doesn't really know what she's talking about. Um, but yeah, I don't know if I'm answering your question. I feel like I'm kind of rambling at this point.
No, you are, you totally are, and I love it. And I just want to add that it's really funny because like when I went through my breakup with like my ex that I started my business with, together 8 years, engaged, all the things, and it was like like a fundamentally like good, healthy relationship. But like what I came to learn in time, because I like early on in my business, I was a little naive. Like don't get me wrong, like I was teaching like fundamentally like really good stuff, but like I was a little naive to think that like that it's like being in a relationship was like the credential a little bit. I didn't fully believe that, but like maybe partially. But at the end of the day, it's like it's not about like, and this is what I like kind of quickly shifted into the beginning, which was something that I always said, and like the people that actually paid attention to my work like reflected this back to me like in a beautiful way when I went through the breakup, which was, you always said, Gianna, and I'll never forget that, like even if this relationship doesn't work out, like I'm still in alignment, I'm still on my path, like I'm still whole, I still love myself, like I still get to have the relationship that I want. And that was true, but it's like life is more, as something that again like you helped me with so much when we were working together, was like accepting nuance, right? That like it's not either like you're bad at love and like in a toxic relationship and like you have all these like triggers that you're not dealing with coming up, or like you're healthy and you're married and this is your one for life, right? Like sometimes it's like, your desires evolve and like what you want in a partner, and like they were the one, but like now you're not the one that was in the relationship with them, right? Or like your trajectory is like change a bit, and like, you like become a different version of yourself, and like paths like diverge, right? And they're supposed to. And that relationship like was a soulmate that was meant to like help you get really clear about like what it is that like you would really want in the long run, right? Or like, what you really need now, like as you've really changed, right? Or as you've really stepped into yourself, right? And like and it's so funny, like those kinds of comments like really just like make me laugh, because I literally had hate threads, like, and I know I told you about this, like I had hate threads like about me, like when I broke up with my ex fiance, God forbid, and like, but I also had a lot of people like that actually like hired me after that and were like, oh my God, I respect it, and like, and some people like I think still project that now, where it's like, oh, Gianna's like so good at relationships that now she's in another relationship and like she's got this like hot masculine like man that like, takes care of her and like whatever, and like I want that, and like sure, that's like an extension of it, but it's always been like about me like
Totally.
honoring my wholeness, my self-love, my
Yes.
standards. Yeah.
Yeah.
um yeah, and like, and I feel like you embody that as well, which I really appreciate. So I know we need to wrap up here in a second, but
No. And I know I really could just talk to you forever. It's
I know
just the
I
truth.
feel the
Yeah.
same way. I feel the same
Yeah.
way, which I love. So we'll definitely do this again. Um, but yeah, I mean, first of all, like thank you so much for everything that you've like brought today, and also just like being yourself, like who you are in this world. I need to like get better at this podcast thing because I keep scratching. Being sorry,
Living and
audio
learning,
people.
living and learning.
Living
Yeah.
and learning. But like thank you so much for being you, and just for being just like a genuine, authentic, like gorgeous woman inside and out. Like you have like positively touched my life in like multiple ways. And so thank you for being like my first guest. Like I'm just like so honored and excited about that. Um and you know, Amy is amazing and incredible. And if you're finding her through me, like go follow her. She is just like such an embodied vibe of just like really like beautiful feminine energy in so many ways. But Amy, do you have any like final words that you just want to leave people with from our conversation today? And then, you know, also like where they can find you and like come work with you and see your stuff.
Yeah, kind of just following up on this last piece you were speaking to, like the relationship game is never over. I feel
Yeah.
like that's the biggest thing I really want all of us to really accept and surrender to and get comfy and cozy with is like there is this fantasy of a finish line. When I meet my
Mm-hmm.
person, well then it's everything's just going to be magical and amazing. It's like, oh, we get married and then you just ride off into the sunset and it's like, no, we are always evolving. We are
Mm-hmm.
always growing. We are always expanding in these different ways. And our relationships are going to evolve and expand and grow with us. And sometimes that expansion and growth takes us in new directions away from each other. Sometimes it creates like a deeper, different kind of bond. But letting go of this idea of finish lines or some ultimate arrival and really being more, to what you teach and model and coach so beautifully, like being in this continuous place of nurturing your relationship to yourself and to others, and that being an ongoing, ever evolving process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
super
Well said.
important. Yeah.
Well said. Okay. So love, love, love it. And I agree with you. It's just like so nuanced. And where can everyone come find you? Or would you like them to come stalk you on YouTube or Instagram? Not
I'm
literally, not literally. If anybody comes for her,
any like no
I will
men's
come
hate
for you.
groups. Okay. We've had enough of
Yeah.
that.
Come for
Um,
me first.
yeah.
Wow. Just kidding.
I'm probably the most active on Instagram these days. So my handle is at Amy Young Co. I'm sure Gianna will put the link in the show notes and there might be some new stuff happening on YouTube soon. So you
Love.
can be prepared for that. But if you follow me on Instagram, please like message me, say hi, let me know that you came from the podcast. I would really love to meet anybody, that this resonates with. Meet in the DMs, meet. But yeah, I just can't say thank you enough for having me. I feel so honored to be here and I'm so excited to tune in to future episodes. I love that you're doing this and I'm so glad I could be a part of it.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And yes, guys, like let me know how this episode resonated and landed for you guys once you give it a listen or give it a watch. And we will see Amy again at some point if
Mhm.
she'll join us again. I'm sure she will because she loves me and I
Absolutely.
love her too. And I will see you guys for the next episode. Bye.